Hello, good afternoon. My name is Gabby Fernandez, and I will be going over this week's discussion, which was to review the Vice President nominee speeches for Vice President Mike Pence and for Vice President nominee Senator Kamala Harris. I will begin with the speech for Vice President Pence. And FYI, if I keep looking down, that's just me looking at my notes that I wrote as I was reviewing both videos and going over the information. So the first thing that I noticed out of Vice President Pence's speech was that he began with a historical aspect to the national anthem. And I also noticed that throughout his speech, he made connections of what he was saying to the national anthem. So I'm guessing the theme of his speech was the national anthem, very patriotic, very American. So I can see, I was able to see that throughout his whole speech. Second, there was the attack to Joe Biden that about the comment that presidential nominee Joe Biden made in his speech about darkness and light, and which was one thing that I had actually noted in my prior review about his speech. So he had kept making comments about darkness and the light, and how darkness basically represented President Trump's administration, and how he was going to bring the light into the new administration if selected as president. So that was also something that Vice President Pence was able to point out. Another thing that I noticed was that throughout his speech, he reaffirms President Trump's actions. He mentions that President Trump does things in his own way under his own terms and says what he wants to say, which is of no surprise given his history with Twitter, given his history with the comments he's made in general. So that's something that we all basically know. He mentioned that that they inherited a presidency that had a hollowed out military and a struggling economy, a silent jab to the prior presidential administration of President Obama and Vice President Biden. Throughout his whole speech, he mentions a lot of the doings of President Trump and the accomplishments such as rebuilding the military, how he created a new branch, the U.S. Space Force, how he returned American astronauts in an American rocket, he reformed the VA, he moved an American embassy to Jerusalem, which was the first Arab country to recognize Israel in 26 years. There's quite a few accomplishments that Vice President Pence points out along the way as well. The appointment of 200 conservative judges to the federal courts, lowest unemployment rate for Hispanics, African Americans, and women. And as he mentions these things, one thing that I noticed as well was that for every comment that is being made about certain issues, such as the recent racial protest, the police defunding, the coronavirus, etc., he drops a comment of Joe Biden. So he will basically say, okay, so President Trump was doing this, this, and this regarding, the coronavirus, or regarding the defunding of the police. But Joe Biden says, for example, whenever he mentions the issues with the protests and the riots, he goes right back into say, oh, well, Joe Biden said nothing about the violence. Or when he mentions about the defunding of the police, Joe Biden is for defunding the police. Joe Biden has been a cheerleader for communist China. Joe Biden has set America on the road to socialism and decline. So basically putting it in the minds and in the ears of the audience that Joe Biden is the total opposite, will bring decline, will bring doom, will bring socialism to the United States. He even goes as far as calling Joe Biden would be a Trojan horse for the radical left. So for every situation, Joe Biden is the anti-person, the anti-figure that he goes ahead and mentions. He ends his speech with bits and pieces of the national anthem, as I said. So he ties it all in together to fit in with his national anthem theme. I felt that what he was aiming for. Like I said, very patriotic, very American. Now in review to Senator Kamala Harris's speech, which was an estimated of about 20 minutes or so. So Senator Harris begins her speech with a mentioning of the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment. She goes on to thank her mother, gives a short back history of her family, her mother, her father, her sister. Explains what the word family means to her and mentions a list of individuals and people that she considers family, and gives a short career background of herself, how she started out as a lawyer, then as a DA, then as a district attorney. A lawyer, a district attorney, attorney general, and U.S. senator. Before she actually gives the thanks for the nomination. So I felt that was actually pretty good, since she is the incoming person, as opposed to Pence, how we know what we know his history, we know what he's done in office with President Trump. I felt that Senator Harris was very smart to give that background about herself, give that background about her career history, to kind of give the audience knowledge of where she comes from, what she does, her political background, which is all important when it comes to politics, obviously. She goes on to mention her and Biden share the same vision of a beloved community, a united community, one that looks out for one another. That's the vision that they see for the United States. So all in all, she's going in and saying, hey, me and President nominee Joe Biden are coming in together as a united front, sharing the same vision. She speaks about electing a president that will bring us all together, no matter our race, our ethnicity, or creed. Paints this family picture of of nominee Joe Biden, that he rode the train from Wilmington, I believe, to D.C. for 4 hours every day. Was able to read bedtime stories to his sons, and as a single father, he was able to do all that and still maintain that family setting for his kids. There is major use of the words united, together, and we. So all in all, that is showing a very, like I said, united front that she shares with Biden, along with the Democratic Party, a together, America, we are here to serve you together. So I felt that was pretty good as well. She talks to the audience directly, speaks a lot about what you will do, how you will affect the nation with the vote, so it makes the audience, it makes a person viewing the speech important. It makes them feel as though they're a part of the process, which we all are, but it feels like she's talking to you directly or me directly, which that's a very good point to have when speaking in a television format. You want to let the audience know that, hey, I'm talking to you directly, and that you can be millions of individuals. And lastly, I noticed that she ends her speech with an upbeat song, and then she faces a huge screen that is filled with squares of individuals that were watching the speech via Zoom, is my assumption. So even though that's not part of the speech, essentially, they still showed it. So again, that lets you know that, hey, even though there weren't people present, there were actual audience of individuals present there to support her. Per se, she had those people watching and supporting her via Zoom. So that was pretty good. That was my analysis of those two speeches. A lot shorter than the last two, which was good. 20 minutes and 37-ish minutes were not bad at all to sit there and watch and listen to what each one had to bring to the table. Now, in regards to what I learned, in chapter 4, there is a mentioning of how reporters cover, how the reporters coverage of issues mirrors the level and intensity of the debate. So the higher the level, the easier the reporters pit the competing sources against each other, which is of no surprise. You're basically adding more wood to the fire. The bigger the fire, let's just keep adding it more and make it a complete bonfire of some sort, is how I see it. So that I learned, but at the same time, it's something that I kind of already knew. The text just confirmed it. Chapter 5 mentions social networks have become important for carriers of political information. So that again is something that with time, as time goes by and technology just advances, social networks are becoming very important. So for example, when I was logging into Instagram today, don't judge me, at the very top there's a strip that says, I'm gonna look down for this because I don't remember it offhand. The little strip says see voting resources and official updates about the 2020 US election. So even on social networks where you're there to be nosy, view pictures, like pictures, whatever, there's already information about voting when it's social networks. So they're putting social networks to good use by adding that extra information that will serve well for the political election this year, especially with social networks being aimed at the younger crowd. I mean, yes, my dad has an IG, but he really doesn't know how to work it, so he's just there just to view family stuff. But what it's aimed at more directly is at teenagers, young adults, that should be more part of the political world nowadays. In chapter 5, it mentioned how advertising is expensive for political campaigns, and once again, I believe that's where the social networks tie in, and they're of great help. It's a great way that political candidates can utilize these resources, spend less money, but reach more people. As I said, the example for Instagram, political candidates are able to, use that forum to reach the younger crowd and more people versus going city to city, which is still very effective, but it allows for more people, less money. So it's essential and it works, especially nowadays during these times for politics. So that is my review for the 2 speeches, my information learned on these chapters, and that is what I have for this discussion. Thank you.